Hi, I'm going to talk today about something a little bit different because, you know, normally I have this eclectic set of software interests. I make lots of games, I make music most recently, I make text editors. So it may actually surprise you to learn that sometimes, every once in a while, I do actually just do normal, boring web development. And for work, obviously, that's mostly what I have done because for some reason people won't pay me to do the other stuff. So I do try to keep up with it. I don't pretend to be, you know, um, on the cutting edge of everything, but I try to keep up. And when it comes to Clojure, I know I have this interest in NIM for game development, but when it comes to web development, I think uh, Clojure is the thing to beat. Clojure and Clojure Script. I still am convinced it's the best set of tools available right now. And if you are at all involved in that, you probably are aware of the Holy Trinity, as I like to call it, which is three things that for some reason start with re, and that is React, Reagent, and Reframe. Um, React probably doesn't need any explanation. That's the thing that's actually modifying the DOM. Reagent is what gives it a nice Clojure wrapper around it. Gives it that nice hiccup syntax and various other things. And then Reframe just allows you to manage your state in a way that's more sane, more easy to manage, and not as disorganized as just a giant hash map, which is what you might use otherwise. So I mean, it's a powerful combination, and I used it for a while. And even today, I think it's good. I think you can't go wrong if you're using it. But, starting a couple years ago, I decided to stop using Reagent. And instead, I started using this thing, which is called Rum. And the reason I started using it is because Rum is really good at server-side rendering. And it can do it entirely on the JVM. There's no extra process or anything you got to run. It's just, just generates the HTML for you and sends it down. And this is incredibly important to me. And by the way, it can do the same stuff, the hiccup syntax and all that you get with Reagent. It can do that too. But server-side rendering is so important because I'm just sick of web apps that, are just a blank screen until the JavaScript loads. And if you don't have JavaScript enabled, it's just always a blank screen. There are just so many philosophical reasons I just detest that idea. And frankly, I kind of am starting to wish we just had a web that didn't have JavaScript at all. But as long as we do have it, we should at least be building stuff that doesn't require it for basic functionality. So that's why I started using Rum. And it's pretty nice. I've had some trouble with more recent releases, but overall I still love it. And there's a problem though, which is Rum does not work with Reframe. Reframe is tied at the hip to Reagent. So that question arises. What replaces the this new holy trinity? What's going to replace Reframe? I'm not gonna make a Reframe for Rum if I can avoid it. And it turns out I can avoid it because I've already made something that actually might be able to replace it, even though I didn't even intend it to. And that is something I showed off like a month ago. And this is O'Doyle Rules. It's my rules engine, which I just added that recently, by the way. If you click that, you'll hear one of the most amazing rap songs you've ever come across. Although, if you're a minor, don't click it because there's some naughty language. O'Doyle Rules is a rules engine kind of similar to Clara, and I do a comparison right here. I'm not going to go over this actually because I already did a video on it. But anyway, I made it originally for my games because I wanted a way of, getting that same kind of reactive programming in a game. And that's what I made it for originally. But it occurred to me that I can use this in web development too. That's the amazing thing about rules engines, is it's like a form of reactive programming that just works everywhere. It's not tied to a particular kind of UI system, like in the same way that something would be tied to the DOM. It just works everywhere. And this is not a new idea. This has been around since the 80s. So this is not just like jumping on a bandwagon. This is actually me trying to go back to an old idea that people have forgotten. Some people have forgotten. So I won't go into the details about how rules work, but I will say, because I have to acknowledge it, that someone, at least one person, has done this idea before of using a rules engine for front-end development, and that's called Precept. And this is the Clojure project, and basically it is using Clara rules underneath, and basically using it to drive all of the state changes. And he's got some code examples here to show you how it works, defining to-dos and stuff. And you'll have to read the README to actually understand it, because I don't really want to cover it right now. But I started thinking, my rules engine probably would be a better fit, because O'Doyle Rules, one of the big advantages is that it has built-in support for updating facts. So it's already built to do exactly what we need to do all the time in, front-end UIs, constantly updating state. Clara was not really designed for that. So I think, I don't know. I don't know how the development of this went, but I'm guessing that there were some issues because of that. And I ran into those issues too, because I was trying to use Clara in game development, and I was like, this is neat, but I got to make my own rules engine because it really wasn't made for this. So anyway, that's the whole idea. This is an example of me using O'Doyle rules for game development. Like, I've got this rule called death, and it just receives the data that it needs, like the health of the entity, and then if it's less than 0, or equal to 0, it does all of this stuff, like playing the death sound and restarting if necessary. So I made it for game development, but it turns out I can do the exact same stuff in web development. And to do it, I made a new library that combines O'Doyle and Rum. So it's called O'Doyle Rum. And I'm going to have to find some album art for this project too, but I haven't yet, so you'll just have to deal with this. This is a tiny library that just fuses these two things together, and it lets you define a Rum component as a rule. So in this example, it's called click counter, and in the what block it says what data it needs. So this is simple, it just needs the number of clicks. And then in the then block, here's the interesting part, it returns the hiccup syntax for a component. So in this case, it's just a button. And you can still receive a prop, just like in a normal React component. You can still do, click events like that. It works the same way. The difference here is that there's a rules engine behind it. This example is too simple to really be able to tell why it's useful, but I'm convinced that I can probably do everything that Reframe does, but in a much simpler package that isn't even specific to front-end development. Like the majority of this is coming from O'Doyle rules, which doesn't care about any UI system. It's completely general. So that's why I think it's cool. It's like I can reuse this idea in multiple different contexts. Like in the future, I'll probably make a library like this for JavaFX. So it lets you make JavaFX UIs that are powered by rules. And most of the logic, most of the work is going to be coming from the same library. It's just like a new backend for it. That's the idea. I don't know if I'm going to build that because I haven't done JavaFX for a long time, but it's just, if I want. I forgot I was wearing this. So now this is a really basic example. Like I said, it doesn't really show you why you would want to do it, because this is just like a different way of making a React component, right? But one of the nice things here is that as your state gets more complex, each of these components will only ever react to the things in their what block. Okay, whereas let's say you're using Reagent and you have a global atom, anytime you modify it, anything that's reading from that atom is going to re-render or at least rerun. But this gives you the precision to say this component should only ever run if this particular value changes. So it's much more precise and probably, I think, will actually be more efficient. I haven't tested it, I'm just guessing. But anyway, I've already used this for a larger project, and that is Dynadoc, which is, I had to dust it off a little bit because I didn't even touch this project for more than a year. But this is my documentation generator, which I think I made a video on. Well, its UI is completely written in O'Doyle Rum now, which actually was not that hard to do because I was already using Rum to make the UI. So I just changed it, and if you go to common.cljc, you'll see that if you scroll down a bit, there's this thing, def components. Well, I'm now defining the components as rules. So this app root component is the root of the app, and this is all the data that it requires. If any of this data changes, it's going to re-render. And you can scroll down and see the other components here. They're all just rules, and they create normal Rum components at the end, and then it just works the same way as any other Rum project. So yeah, you can read that if you want to, but anyway, it seems to work well so far. Dynadoc is not the most complex UI, so the fact that it works here doesn't mean it's perfect everywhere, but I'm gonna keep working on it and see if because I got another idea that I want to revive that's been in my head for a while, and it requires some kind of web UI. So I was like, well, I'll use O'Doyle Rum and see if it works on a larger project, and if not, then at least I tried. So that's basically the idea behind it. And I hope you like it. If not, then screw. Hold on, it's not coming up. Screw you.